Welcome to the Perpetual Incompetence Podcast, a journey in competitive self-improvement.
Bear witness as the three of us will endeavor to improve our lives by competing in a series of low-stakes challenges.
In each episode, we will come up with a challenge and then define the rules or metrics for victory.
We'll have 2 weeks to do our best, and at the end, one of us will be crowned victor. Hi, I'm True Believer Mike Collins.
Hello, I'm Master Yogi and Master of Wind, Dan Collins.
Hello, I am Future Corpse, Travis Braband. All right, we each have one idea for a challenge for us to attempt in the next 2 weeks, and after we've all presented, then we'll decide which is the best idea, and we'll give it a shot. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go first. Mine's a pretty simple idea, and it's very clear how it would be self-improvement. So my diet is really bad. I eat a lot of microwave frozen things and canned ravioli, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So simply eat more fruits and vegetables. That's it. And I was thinking the metric for who won would be just like a numbers game, just who ate the most fruits and vegetables.
like by weight?
by weight or by like number, how many bananas and mangoes and broccoli.
So whoever eats grapes wins.
Well, okay. Well, it would have to be like by weight then, I suppose. We'd have to figure out the average weight of a grape.
Sure.
Well, yeah. I guess, I mean, if you had a tracker for if you kept tracking, all right, this banana weighs, 10 ounces. I think that's a pretty big banana.
Bananas come in all shapes and sizes. Well,
that's
not
true.
Shapes, but all sizes.
Yeah.
Well, they do
generally
have
just the one shape, but yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
it. That's all I got.
Sure. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go next. We did this a little bit with the Justin Bieber episode. And as a preface, I don't think it matters necessarily, but Mike, you and I were both in the Marine Corps, and Dan, you were in the Peace Corps, which is arguably cooler. I want us...
Arguably.
Having been in the Marine Corps, I would say what you did is probably cooler.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Anyway, I want us to become more manly men in a very traditional way. I think we should do this by learning to appreciate and write poetry.
That's not the direction I thought that was going.
Okay. So poetry used to be like a primary part of education, like the appreciation of the written word and creative use of the English language and that sort of thing. But people just don't use it much anymore. I know that there are some people that still love it, but it has sort of a different connotation. And I've tried to get into poetry in the past, but I couldn't ever find anything that really grabs me. So I figured let's give it an honest shot. This month is actually poetry month. So
rap battles. You can actually in Vikings times, when the Vikings were there, they kind of did a rap battle, but they'd write poems that just insulted another Viking, but they'd say poems at each other in a battle sort of situation. So. I mean, it used
to be a cool thing that to string together some words that would rend someone's soul.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about that, that's what a rap battle is. I mean, you're just,
just writing
really
poems
trying to
for
hurt somebody's feelings. But I would say if I was to do that, I wouldn't do, we're not saying we have to hurt each other's feelings or win a battle. We need to write the best poem.
Well, so here's my metric. Or we could play with it, but here's what I was thinking at least. I think we should read poetry every day, and then whoever can write the best poem about the most ridiculous subject wins.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I think I got kind of stepped on, but I think this month is poetry month also, as an added little bonus there.
What month is it? April?
Yeah.
April is the month.
One of my best friends is a published poet, so I might have a little bit of
I believe Travis is a published poet, if I'm not mistaken.
Are you?
I am. You may not know this about me, Dan, but I am a published poet technically. Do
Go
you,
on.
Sure.
Travis, can you read us your poem? Do you
Yeah,
have
let
it
me,
handy?
let me give the listener a little little backstory first.
Yeah.
In fifth grade, we did like a short section on poetry for some reason. I think a local poet was like making the rounds and like teaching us about poetry. So we all had to write a poem. So I did. And I'll read it now and then I'll give you the rest of the story. Get my best poetry slam voice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is called The Poem of Storms. My fear was like a monster, chasing me, and it wouldn't stop. It looked like a phoenix. Every flash of lightning was like a volcano erupting. I spoke to my fear and said, "Leave me alone." It answered, "I can't. I'm part of you."
Ooh.
Moving.
Yeah.
So I wrote that in fifth grade.
That's pretty good for a fifth grader.
That is pretty good for a fifth grader.
You know what's not great is the art I did around it, like a little me in a volcano and like the worst lightning bolt. So I wrote that probably just like a throwaway, like, all right, whatever, we have to do this for class. So I wrote it and then I turned it in, and then I think somebody probably said like, "Hey, that's pretty good. Can we put that in the newspaper?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, that'd be cool." So it was put in the newspaper, and then a couple, like, I think 2 years ago or something like that, my mom for Christmas gave me this book. This book is a collection of like children's poetry. So I think somebody saw my poem in the newspaper, and unbeknownst to me, or like they certainly didn't ask me for it, they put it into a collection of children's poetry. So
Oh,
my
weird.
book was unknowingly my poem was published in this book, and I had no idea, including the artwork. So now forever, my crappy artwork is immortalized in this book.
Well, that can't be legal, can it?
It's probably
I don't
they
know.
probably like asked your mom, and she said, "Oh, it's fine," you know.
Yeah,
You
maybe.
gotta get royalties on that.
I don't think it's flying off the shelves. I'll say that.
That's
So yeah, I whether that gives me an advantage or not, I don't think so. But that's my pitch. I think we should kind of look into poetry and try to make a fun poem.
I would say if we were to do that, I mean, I like the premise of making it about something ridiculous, but I feel like I might want to take it kind of seriously, you know, and be like, you know, I want to talk about the I don't know.
We could just do the best poem if you want. They can be
Yeah, just
humorous, or they
best
can be
poem.
epic, or whatever.
Well, so this is, I mean, there's a lot of subjectivity in what you would consider to be the best poem.
Well,
Right.
there's a lot of subjectivity in who's the best believer, but we still picked
That's
a
fair.
winner.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's part of why we have 3 people on here. And I mean, you know, we can decide, and then maybe we could put out to like a poll to people on Twitter and see if they agree, or maybe we could leverage outside resources. I don't know.
No, we're the only deciding. We're the only judges on this in this
That's fair.
situation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
let's hear yours.
Yeah. Okay. So for the past couple challenges, I've utilized meditation to help me, you know, do the challenge. I haven't been winning, which isn't a great, you know, vote of confidence for it, but that's okay. So anyway, I think that because Travis had actually mentioned, this was one of Travis's submissions from the first episode, to do meditation every day. So I'm bringing it back because I've been using it, and I'm kind of into it. I kind of dig it. So my idea is, you know, there's a bunch of flavors of meditation. There's like transcendental, you know, Buddhist meditation. There's the one that I did, and I don't remember the name of it. Hold on. mindfulness meditation.
There you go.
So, but anyway, so that's my thought. We should meditate, and then what we would judge it on is who has or gets the best epiphany or new outlook on life. And that could be something along like, does this meditation provide like a physical feeling, euphoria that is like and you feel like this is something that could help you in your life, or is it like a deeper understanding of reality, and then you'd have to go into deep, or would it be, I think meditation is dumb. Here's all the reasons why. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's and I have a pretty good honorific for this one too. So that's my idea.
Okay. The metric of success would need some work, I think. It seems a little bit reminiscent of the kind of the memento mori future corpse sort of, as far as, I don't know. It's hard to really quantify insights or.
Well, that's I agree, but I don't know. What do you guys got a better one that we could use with that? Because I don't know how else you would judge it, because it's all kind of subjective, personal experience. But I feel like as we've discussed a lot of this stuff, we get a pretty good vibe of this was a real thing that this person experienced. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
Well, Travis, because you suggested, what was your metric?
I don't think
When
I had
you,
one.
you
Yeah,
just,
we weren't as great at picking metrics in episode 1, probably. I don't know that I had one really lined up. We didn't spend a lot of time on it. I think
We
it was
could,
basically just meditate for 20 minutes a day and go from there, which is not great.
we could make a more like numeric based, like who spends the most millennia, or who spends the most epochs on the ethereal plane.
Uh, I don't
Just
know.
compare notes.
I got things to do, man.
I don't have time to meditate.
Yeah, I feel like there's a saying that people do where, like, if you don't have 15 minutes to meditate, then that means you need to meditate more or whatever. Like basically saying that if you can't make time, then that's when you need it more than anything.
Yeah.
But the idea of, like, because, like, Dan, I don't want to flex on you or dunk on you, but, like, you don't have kids. As you mentioned, you're able to play video games a bunch. Like, if we do it as purely amount of time doing something, you have a strong advantage there, I would say.
Yeah, I think we'd have to do it in a way that it's not time based. It's who gets the most out of it, kind of thing. And I
Okay.
think the only way to do that is to compare like our experiences and say, like, who. Oh, okay. So my idea for the honorific is enlightened one.
Sure.
So it's like who has become the most enlightened by their meditation.
If it helps or makes any difference, the idea for an honorific that I had for the poetry one was Poetic Soul.
Oh, that's pretty good.
All right, so we've heard all three. Let's pick one.
Okay. Yeah, the one that's going to be the easiest to judge is Dan's. It's fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
It's true.
And I would argue it would be the clearest beneficial thing for our lives. Healthy diet.
I don't know, man. It's pretty sweet.
Oh, I think we're like evenly split here because we all want to do our own thing.
All right. I guess out of your two, the one that sounds the most interesting to me is Travis's. So if I wasn't able to pick my own, I think I would lean towards Travis's.
Fine.
I definitely want to do the meditation one, Mike. I think we just need to let it cook a little bit longer. We need to really come up with a good metric for success. Because, I mean, obviously I want to do it because it was the thing that I suggested first. But I would also vote for mine because, I don't know, the stars have aligned. It's Poetry Month. And I don't know, it came to me in the shower this morning and I'm like, you know what? Dan, as you mentioned, we don't need to let society determine what we can enjoy or whatever. Like, let's do research into poetry and let's really get in deep. Go ahead.
Justin Bieber taught me that. Yeah.
That's right.
He's kind of a poet himself, the Beeb.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dan, what are you?
I mean, I would say if I couldn't do mine, I would probably pick Travis's as well.
Okay. fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So okay, so
Winning by default every time.
so for the metric, it's the best poem that is written by yourself, right? So
Yeah, I think
so
so.
like, and okay, that's gonna be hard to judge because I could see all three of us having some pretty epic poetry.
Well, what I did kind of anticipate that in that poetry has, it can be free form, as I understand it, but it also sometimes has rules. And that sometimes, if we all agreed that we had equally great poems, it could come down to who plays within the rules most. Because there's
Okay.
like meter and rhyme and beats per line and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We could use that as kind of a tiebreaker.
Yeah, that's true. Like, or
I think with something like poetry, I mean, as hard as it would be and as subjective as it obviously is, I don't think we can have a clear metric for this one.
Sure.
I think it's got to be which one we just think is the best.
is there a way that we could hone it in more so that it's easier to compare ours? So like, if we picked a topic, what if we picked a topic?
Well, that's kind of where
okay.
I was starting with. There's like, it doesn't have to be the most ridiculous subject or something, but we can kind of give ourselves some constraints to play within.
That's a good idea, actually.
Okay, so what topic would be good for all of us to do it on? It could be kind of an expansive one. It doesn't have.
Well, Travis had said that it was to be the manliest man. How about just manliness?
Just manliness.
A poem about manliness.
Sure.
About being a man.
About being a man.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
that is a loaded topic. There's a lot of room to play within there, I think.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
All right.
Are we good with that?
What's the what was the
So the one I had
thing?
come up with, and we can change whatever, but it was a Poetic Soul.
Poetic Soul. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
good,
I don't think I can beat that. That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right, so the challenge
forecast.
is okay. So let's just clarify quick. The challenge is to read some poetry every day, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, have written the best poem about manliness.
Or just or manhood, something with the word man in it. Maybe
Sure.
Manliness.
it could be woman.
Whatever that. Hey,
Or
it's
mankind.
2022. Mankind. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Poem must contain man in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the projections here.
All right. Well, Travis is a published poet already.
Poet
So-
laureate. Is that what you mean?
It's I don't know. what
Peaked
that
at fifth
means.
grade.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a fair amount of writing in my day. I've had a lot of literary classes in college and high school. I feel pretty good about this one.
I mean, I used to write songs and stuff like that. I still do, I guess.
Yeah, I think we're all even playing field.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So we have our challenge. We have our honorific. We have our forecast. Let's do this. Hey gang, quick note here before the second half of the show. If you have any feedback, questions, concerns, or recipes for chili, please send them to us at perpetualincompetence@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces or hyphens. Or you can tweet us at @incompetentpod. Both of these links will be in the show notes as well. If you would like to join us in the challenges, we will be posting them to our Twitter as soon as we start them. We'd love to hear about your experience, thoughts about the show, or just say hello. Anyway, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Perpetual Incompetence Podcast. As a reminder, we recorded the first part of the podcast 2 weeks ago, and since then, we've been learning to appreciate and write poetry. Let's discuss our initial thoughts and lessons first, and then we'll open up our souls to the internet. Mike, do you want to go first as far as your thoughts?
Yeah, let's do this. My plan when we started this I was kind of trying to pick just something to start listening to at work. So I was like, who's a poet that I'm aware of? And it turns out I don't know a bunch of poets, so I went with Edgar Allan Poe,
Sure.
because he's quite famous. So I started listening to a great course about, just Edgar Allan Poe, kind of his life, and then it sort of broke down some of his writings. It was like an English professor who was super into him, I guess. But anyway, so big fan. So as I started listening to it, the first like 3 chapters in it were just describing Edgar Allan Poe's life, and it turns out Edgar Allan Poe is kind of just a garbage sack of a human, just a waste of oxygen.
A little bit of a train wreck, yeah.
Yeah, just this whiny, like, they have like these interactions, these letters between him and his foster father, where he's just like, "You don't understand me. You won't give me money because you hate me."
So he's just like what people imagine when they think of poets.
Yes. So anyway, continuing along that train wreck, as it were, I kind of quickly realized like he was more of a short story writer more than a poet, although he did write some good ones, The Raven being the most famous. And I got through maybe half of that great course, and what I took away from it is I don't really like Edgar Allan Poe as a person. His writing's kind of cool, and The Raven is really good. That's
Sure.
what I took away from that.
Nice,
It's great.
yeah.
It's a cool poem. So I decided that was kind of a dead end. So I found this other audiobook, and it was called Good Poems, and it was just kind of famous good poems by historical and modern poets, and it was read by like actors, and they all had like British or Scottish or Irish accents, and it was just it was a very chill thing to listen to, especially when I was being like serenaded by this Scottish guy, this old Scottish man reading me love poetry. It was very moving.
Can I say that when I
Romantic.
first started listening, I listened to some Irish poetry as well. But because I usually listen to books on like 1.2 or 1.4 speed, the audiobook was at 1.4 speed. So I was listening to Irish poetry at 1.4 speed, which was just unintelligible. Couldn't make out a single word. But after that, it was more relaxing. So go ahead.
Well, so anyway, so I got through that, and I was like, these are really good. And then so I was trying to find, from there on, I was just trying to find some good poetry to read online, and it turns out there's a lot of bad poetry. And
Sure.
my second part of my my dissertation here is I've developed some opinions about poetry.
I would love to hear your opinions about poetry.
Yeah. So me and Travis went to a used bookstore and to find some poetry books. It was the second week, last week, as we were kind of getting ready. And I grabbed this one that Travis actually recommended, which was Good Poems by Garrison Keillor.
Which
That
is
one's
different
great.
from the audiobook that you're listening to.
Yeah,
They're both
it's
called Good Poems, right?
maybe the other one was called Great Poems. This one's definitely called Good Poems because it's sitting in front of me.
Sure.
And then I also got this other one called the Best American Poetry of 2007, which is modern stuff. And I've discovered something. As people are kind of discussing on the internet anyway, what makes good poetry, turns out that the stuff that I thought was good poetry is like, oh, that's a peasant's poetry.
Yeah. Poetry for the plebs.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
then-
mean, to be fair, we kind of, we are.
I mean, we are, sure.
Yeah.
And then the stuff that is good poetry, which apparently this one is, just reading cover here, it's the best anthology that really lives up to the title that's by the Chicago Tribune. This book is awful. It is so
Yeah.
bad. So what I've discovered is the bad poetry, the quote unquote bad poetry that I like is like the children's poems that actually rhyme or have a rhythm to them, that I talk about interesting topics
Sure.
that are funny, or maybe, they talk about serious things, but they're obviously written by somebody that has experienced these emotions or these events, and they needed to talk about it somehow. Those are good poems to me, bad poems to poets, apparently. And apparently, in order to be a good poet, you have to write pedantic, pompous, just like with words that are, I don't know, it's just awful. They're so bad.
Poems that have like four levels of abstraction and require a doctorate to be able to parse, and even then, you're taking a wild step. Like, it very much seems like poetry that exists solely to be dissected, rather than like
enjoyed.
A poem meant to just invoke an emotion or a story or something like that. It's just, it exists solely for critical acclaim.
Yeah, and I would make this akin to jazz music, because certainly there's jazz music that people do like, but oftentimes it's more simpler. And then you get the stuff that's super abstract and dissonant, and like it's like the rhythms are constantly changing, and it's like hard to keep track of what's going on. And I mean, I kind of enjoy that sort of jazz sometimes, but like in order to enjoy it, you have to understand what the music is supposed to be doing, and then when they're doing the opposite of that, you're like, oh, I got you tricky little bugger. And that's kind of but I think that's what's going on here. But I think there's also a level of, people buying into their own narrative, that they're this tortured artistic soul, but they don't have life experience to put behind it. And I think there's a lot of that happening.
Sure.
And so anyway, that's where I ended. So basically, I like the more childish, simple, fun poetry, and the other stuff. I think I've had enough of it. I don't need any more.
Sure. Well, so is that your final conclusion?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's I didn't break through and like, oh, I see. Now it's clear to me now. No, it's like the further down the rabbit hole I went, it just annoyed me more. It's like, this person really wants you to think that they're deep,
So let me jump in here, because I think my experience was similar, but I want to go a little bit further, maybe expand a little bit.
Go for it.
Yeah, I had kind of the same perspective as far as the poems by, your fancy or your high class doctoral thesis writing poets were almost never enjoyable for me, if I could even understand what's going on. But it's not all like that. There are some, I did find out that the poet laureate position is like it basically just means there's like the chosen master poet for an organization for a period of time. So the U.S. has one, the Library of Congress apparently has one too, but two poets that I discovered and enjoyed were Ted Kooser and Billy Collins. And both of them have a very simple, people would call it a plain writing style, but I found that a lot of their poems were both easy to follow, but also still emotionally impactful. So you could actually get something out of it and understand it, and it wasn't like you needed a pen and paper to really break the poem down.
Yeah.
So there are some out there that get away from that approach, but I would agree with you. Those are the minority.
I'd like to think that the kind of your enjoyment of poetry, it's something that is meant to be, special to you. You think of like wine tasting, and the point of becoming a wine taster, or like, understanding the wines that you're tasting, is so that you can find the stuff that you like. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily to say, oh, this is awful wine, throw it in the garbage. It's
Yeah.
just like, well, this isn't for me, but I'm sure somebody would like it. So I would say, I'd hope that I'm sure if you talk to people who went to 8 years of college for creative writing and poetry, that they would disagree with me wholly. Maybe we'll see a backlash on Twitter. We'll find out.
Well, that is an important point to make, though, is that none of this is to say, I mean, in our opinion, the high-minded poetry is not very good. It's perfectly acceptable for people who like that sort of thing to not like the simple poetry that we like. But the problem is, many times you have that impression that you had, where if you like simple poems, you're given kind of looked down the nose at.
Yeah,
that you're just a simple moron who likes simple words.
But yeah, I think you see this in any well-developed art form. There's that kind of attitude of the super high class, and then there's the people that still perform on that super high class that aren't snooty. But I think people enjoy being snooty about art of any type. It's kind of goes along.
Well, I mean, if you have like a master's degree in English, especially like English literature, you spend years and years dissecting metaphors and going through like the tiny little details about things and what this could possibly mean. So you would, of course, eat up the weird stuff that has like layer upon layer that like when you just read it, it doesn't really mean anything. But if you dissect it, like if I had spent years and years like deeply dissecting words and sentences, I would probably go crazy over that type of poetry. You know what I mean?
No, that's a valid point. I think that's true, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I kind of do that myself with music a lot. But I think it comes down to, as I was researching the poetry, there's a lot of people that enjoy looking down on people. You can still enjoy it.
Yeah, whatever. people are jerks. Whatever.
I don't know. I just saw a lot of that. Like, as I was kind of looking at, like, I was just Googling, like, what are some good poems? And then you go to this forum and they're like, oh, read this one. And then the next person's like, oh that one?
Well, so I would say, I mean, clearly there are exceptions to that, though. Like, because after reading, so I didn't read any like books or anything. I just basically Googled like best poems and like famous poets and stuff like that. And I generally gravitated towards names I recognize, but Ernest Hemingway, did you guys read any of his stuff?
Yep, I've read some.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I would say that it's very simply worded and just very visceral. And just real reality, and like not even really like written very pretty, probably on purpose. And
right,
like that's like, you don't need a degree to understand what that means, but that's recognizes, he's a great writer, great poet.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and like sort of what Mike hinted at earlier too is Ernest Hemingway also clearly had some life experience backing up that poetry.
Yeah, definitely.
That guy led a storied life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess in summation, I had a similar experience, but I enjoyed the simple poetry, and I think that, like, I don't know, I think the phenomenon that we're discussing here is sort of what has led to poetry being not shunned, but kind of receding from common usage. Like, it really only being enjoyed and kind of gate kept by the high society collegiate crowd has sort of led to, the middle class, the lower class folks not really enjoying it, both from that perception of it being high society and just from the sort of this needless abstraction, I think, which is kind of tragic because
Yeah.
poetry, as we mentioned before, was, kind of the common thing. Like it's basically how stories were passed down. It was how records were kept, but also more recently, a lot of folk music, involves poetry. Your Leonard Cohens and your Bob Dylans and stuff like that are basically poets set to music. So I think that it's kind of unfortunate that poetry has gained the connotation that it has, and I kind of wish that it would be made more accessible. So we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good perspective, I think. Yeah.
That's true, because I legitimately found a lot of poetry that I did enjoy. So I'm certainly not turned off to it. I would say I've been, yeah. One of the things that I started doing, I'm not going to take credit for this because it was actually Travis that he started doing it first, but I've been trying to get up earlier in the morning, and I had my poetry books that I bought sitting by my chair in the living room. So I got up like early in the morning. It was like 5:30, made a cup of coffee and just sat down and read poetry for 20 minutes. And it was just a delight.
Yeah, that's a good way to start the day.
Yeah.
I will also mention, you mentioned reading Edgar Allan Poe, and when I was in college, I took a class on Shakespeare, and some of that covered his poems and stuff. And I think that, in my opinion at least, when you're reading poetry that has like a ton of footnotes describing to you what the words, like what they mean, is a lot like having an inside joke explained to you, and that at the end of it, you'll understand it, but you'll never get it. Like you can't enjoy a thing if like 60% of the words have to be explained to you.
That's true.
So if anybody listening is wanting to try out poetry, do not go with like Shakespeare or the olden stuff, at least for starting out, because it will be pointless to you.
I super recommend the Good Poems book by Garrison Keillor.
Yeah,
It's
that's great.
Yeah, I was enjoying most of the ones I was reading in there. There's some kind of funny ones, witty, sort of,
Yeah,
kind of meta poetry, which is kind of entertaining.
Sure. And I will mention, I also enjoyed. I found the poetry that I liked, the simple stuff, and I found that, in my opinion, sort of the best types of poetry. For the nerds out there, is almost like casting a weird spell, in that this like 10 lines of a poem can basically invoke feelings or memories or a response in your brain, maybe for something that you've never actually experienced before. Like good poetry, and might be, the simple stuff, like in 10 lines, you can be transported somewhere else. You can, almost feel like you're there. It's like the best parts of a good book, but distilled down into just like 10 lines, which is amazing in a way.
That is cool.
I in high school, I thought, because I had like a creative writing class, I remember, and we did a lot of poetry and poetry writing and stuff. And I thought like poems are like cookies. They're like a little emotion cookie. You eat it, and it's it's just this brief little thing that like a regular cookie you just enjoy. It tastes really good, but like it's just a little emotion cookie. It just brings a little bit of an emotion, or maybe like a thought into your mind, or like a scene, and it's there for a little bit, and it's you can just enjoy it, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, I wrote down the note, a good poem can give you nostalgia for something or somewhere you've never actually been before.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a fleeting moment of like it sits with you and it's great for a second, and then it's gone, and you're like, oh, okay. It's nice.
That was something I experienced.
Yeah, It was nice. I remember the days when I was wailing in the open sea.
All right, Dan, you wanna lay it on us?
Yeah, I mean, I like I had kind of said, I just basically Googled like best poems, and I just read a bunch of poems, and I looked up different poets, and actually I did a lot of searching for poems about manliness, because that's what we were doing. I got a lot of speeches, which I guess are sort of a poem.
Yeah, so you're running into kind of what made me think to have this challenge is that there are a lot of excerpts from speeches, and there are a bunch
Yeah.
of tangentially related stuff, sort of, but there are very few actual poems relating specifically to manliness, at least is what I could find.
Well, so like I actually wrote down there's three primary things that I found that sort of made me think mostly about manliness. One of them was a speech by Theodore Roosevelt, who I think we can all agree is probably like he's, if by any definition, is a very manly man.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
He did a speech called "The Man in the Arena," which is I don't know if you guys saw that one, but that one was pretty inspiring. There's a reverend called. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I would say basically, for the listener, the man in the arena, in a much better way, boils down to basically a hater's gonna hate.
Yeah. Basically, if you're the one doing stuff, then any critic who isn't doing stuff should shut up.
Yeah. It's great. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Then there's a reverend called James F. Clark who did a speech about, and it's just entitled "True Manliness," which I think just nailed how I feel about what manliness is. And then my friend Ethan recommended I read "If" by Rudyard Kipling. You guys read
that one was I wrote it down. That was I think the favorite one that I read.
Yeah. So I did a lot of just kind of Googling, and then I looked it up, and I honestly, I think I had a similar experience to you guys, where I didn't really get much out of just reading poetry. Most of it I just sort of read, and it was really pretty words. But there's a few different poets that sort of spoke to me. I'd say Ernest Hemingway, definitely. When I read his stuff, I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, you know, but
yeah, you just get it.
And I got into Shakespeare because I was trying to write a sonnet. I did write a sonnet.
Excellent.
And so I was reading a lot of Shakespeare, but it's kind of Shakespeare. It's very, very beautifully worded, but I didn't really understand what a lot of the things were. And then I watched a whole bunch of videos of, Jean-Luc Picard. What's his name?
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. He has a YouTube series where he just reads sonnets, and that's it. He just is like sitting on his couch with a book, and he's like, sonnet number 1 is one video, and then sonnet number 2.
I know what I'm doing for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, and it's really great, but like I realized, you know, after I listened to a bunch of them, like I don't really like. It's beautiful. It sounds really nice, and you know, his voice is very, very nice and soothing, but I don't understand what the words were saying, and it didn't really evoke any emotion from me.
Forsooth.
Some of those, they could probably, with the amount of like effort put into their delivery, they could be reading technical manuals and still deliver the same effect.
Yeah. But so like I wasn't really getting much from reading poetry, but the thing is, when I started writing poems, I was like thinking about it and how to put it into words actually made me like really kind of feel a lot of, like, I would say like strong emotion when I was trying to write these words. So writing it was very cathartic, and it felt very powerful to write it, but reading other people's words wasn't really doing much for me. And that's sort of how I ended up. So I spent more time writing than I did reading, I guess.
Yeah, I will say the act of writing these poems, it forces you to be like completely honest. Like you're not like hiding or trying to pretend anything. Like you're trying to put truth on paper or whatever, and especially relating to manliness is like something that I think we all kind of hold close to us and doesn't. I don't know if you guys read it, but Charles Bukowski has a poem called Bluebird, I think. And the whole premise, it's very good. You should listen to it. The whole premise of it basically is that like most men, modern men at least, walk around with like he says like a bluebird in their chest that they never let out, and the bluebird is essentially their kind of their softer side or their emotions or whatever. But like when you're trying to write poetry, you're basically just like pulling that bluebird out of your chest and scrambling it onto a paper.
That's a lovely analogy.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely got some of that too, and it with anything when you try to do something, when you try to make something like trying to build a table will make you appreciate tables more, just because you know the kind of effort and the challenge that goes into it. So I got that also.
Yeah, and I will also say writing poetry is not an easy thing to do. It was definitely a struggle. I was like, I'll just try and knock out one a day, and and then one of them will be good enough. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So along those lines, let me read you the first one that I did put together. This is not my submission. But I was struggling for quite some time to think of like a manliness poem to start. So this is what came out in the end. Roses are red, violets are blue, poetry is hard, 69 pp poo poo.
Classic. Now let's really dig in there. What do you mean by 69 pp poo poo?
Yeah, that's
something about bodily excrement and
how are you
being
feeling?
The toxicity of modern masculinity.
How many tears did you shed while you put that pen to paper?
One for each stroke of my pen, Dan.
There you go. Writing with an ink pot of tears.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Anyway.
I also have a backup. It sounds like we each wrote more than one. So should we do our backups quick?
Yeah. Let's hear them.
So I ended up not going with this route, but my initial impressions were sort of contrast me with my grandfather or great grandfather, like the old men, right? That image. So this poem is called Long Hours. Late to bed, early to rise, a quiet house, consolation prize. Prepare for work to meet the day, out the door without delay. He loads the truck, tools piled high. I pack my bag with work supplies. He arrives on site, punches a clock. I find my desk and make a pot. He molds and welds, builds from scratch. I hit reply, but forget to attach. He eats from a pail under open sky. I ask for ranch, but on the side. His back is bent, carrying beams and such. My back hurts because I sit too much. He leaves for home, his body sore. I head out, essentially bored. Late to bed, early to rise, a happy house with joyous cries. Return from work, having won the day, we both provide in our own way.
Ooh, that's really nice, actually.
That's pretty good, Travis.
That's your backup?
Thanks.
That's your
That's
backup?
Yeah. I mean, if you think this one's better than my other one, then I reserve the right to change it.
I like that. That's
nice. That's kind of a nice sentiment, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Dan. You said you did more than one, or do you?
I did. I wrote 4 of them. 2 of them are okay. Well, you want me to? I can read you my sonnet.
I mean, you don't have to. Whatever you want to do.
I'll read you my limerick. There once was a man from St. Paul. He knew that he knew it all. With a predictable life, avoiding all strife, a man's purpose he could not recall.
There you go. That's solid.
That's pretty good.
It's convenient that you live in St. Paul.
Well, yeah.
Okay,
right.
so let's talk our metric. So our metric was going to be the best poem.
Yeah.
So
Well, best poem relating to manliness.
Relating to manliness, yeah. Do we need to strike any kind of ground rules before, describing best before we start reading our poems here?
I mean, I honestly don't know what makes a poem better than another poem. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah,
Okay.
we
Okay.
did know that going in, and that it would be pretty subjective.
Like
Yeah.
we could say word count. Like I don't know.
Oh, let's
Uh,
let's. I don't know. Do you have any in mind, Mike? Otherwise, we can just let him
my
go and hash it out.
Yeah, maybe we should just let it happen, and then we can debate, and then if we can't figure it out, we'll just meet up and arm wrestle for it.
Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
that would be a fitting end
We'll
to it.
we'll figure it out. We have to.
Okay.
We do a push-up contest or something. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So
Who
who
can
wants
build
to
the
go?
best chair? I don't know. All right.
I'll go first.
Okay.
All right. This poem is called Ideals. When I was young, the ideal was bold, full of reckless courage, never growing old. His thoughts of duty and action without hesitation, a shining hero to our great nation. Once I accepted the call, the ideal changed. His unthinking obedience became deranged. I drank the honor, tasted sacrifice and doubt. I found no glory, so decided to get out. Detached from service, the ideal became wisdom. A keen mind, the keys to the kingdom. Queries, facts, and academic knowledge, all these and more I discovered in college. On campus I studied, late into the night, trusting that facts would lead me to right. Graduated proud, but in my cap I discovered, knowing is one thing, doing is another. With my head full of theory, the ideal was hardworking, steady and true, quietly serving. He put in his hours, then put in some more, trading in time at the company store. I followed his lead, and my bank account grew. I diligently served, wore holes in my shoes. But emptiness blossomed and started to cloy. The money was good, but wouldn't bring joy. In relative comfort, the ideal was just present. He was there for his friends and delivered contentment. He played with his kids, supported his wife. He built for himself an idyllic life. The jury's still out on my tenure as dad. Though I'm incredibly blessed with the family I have, I reignited friendships with new memory making, but I still have a slight longing, an aching. With boxes all checked, the ideal is uncertain, not ready to bow, not ready for curtain. He strengthens connections and searches for purpose, but secretly wonders if it all has been worthless. We follow ideals to get where we're going, but the map's incomplete, the ideals are unknowing. When seeking a purpose, the ideals will be lost, so you must choose your direction and shoulder the cost. That's the end. No, you gotta, if it's poetry, you gotta do finger
sorry.
snaps.
That's
Yeah, there we go.
that's really
So-
that's pretty good, man.
Should we delve into the meaning and the backstory? I would like to hear the artist's take on their own poem.
So, in the spirit of honesty, I guess when I thought of masculinity, I thought of kind of a continual emulation of people that we see as being the ideal man, the masculine, whatever, the representation of the ideals that we're seeking to emulate. So when I was in high school, that was, the patriotic soldier, the Marine. So I joined the Marine Corps. Got into the Marine Corps and realized that it wasn't exactly what I thought it was, and decided to get out. It wasn't, I should say, I didn't hate it. I had a good time, but it wasn't the glorious brotherhood that I had expected. So got out of the Marine Corps, and then the next step was, wisdom, learning things, being smart. So I went to college, found that college was full of academic types who had full brains, but, empty pocketbooks or whatever. And they, lots of people who wanted to stay in the educational and academic setting forever rather than, strike out and do any actual work. So, decided to get out, do some work, put my degree to use, got a job, made some money, and then kind of realized that, again, I mean, the poem is basically a series of checking boxes, doing things that I was told by society, or doing the things that you do to kind of round out your life. These are the things that the advice you're given is, well, not many people are saying join the military, but go to college, get a degree, get a job, get a wife and kids, get a house, all that stuff. And the whole premise of the poem is that I've done those things. I've checked my boxes. And now the ideal, I don't really have an ideal anymore. There's nobody that tells you what purpose to follow, what your actual purpose is. So when you get to the end of that, when you've checked your boxes, it's going to be up to you to figure out what to do and how to, bring fulfillment and purpose to your life.
Nice.
Then you start a podcast.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's heavy. I
Hey,
dig it.
we went for
Real.
honesty.
Yeah.
All right. Mike, do you want to go next? Or
Yeah, I can go next.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just read it first and we can talk about it afterwards. So this one's called What a Man Does. My son, it won't be painless. Balking blissful follies of the brainless. It may seem fine, but by design it is ultimately gainless. Now a boy will prefer to shirk all responsibility with a smirk, and he asserts that he's too clever to endeavor, which means nothing without hard work. So toil without applause, take joy in work's own cause. There's satisfaction in the action, because this is what a man does. Now a boy will combust with infatuated lust, and while in fashion he'll have passion that acquiesces into dust. But a man will take pause after love shows its flaws, knowing the prizes, trust and compromises, because this is what a man does. Now a coward will justify all the reasons he shouldn't try, and pontificate and gold plate his fear of a blackened eye. So stand defiant when you die, and stare death in the eye. He'll have no means to contend, a good father, husband, and friend. To this end, a man must try.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. I loved your rhyme
was-
scheme.
Yeah, it was
you.
like really dense. Like it's basically like a Susie and Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that as the highest compliment.
Yeah.
So the basic idea is it's me giving advice to my boys. So,
Yeah.
and telling them kind of my philosophy on what a man should do. So
Dang it, man.
yeah, and so like it's kind of talking about like, it doesn't matter how smart you are if you're not willing to work. And then it talks about how to treat a lover, and then how to be, like how to be strong and resolute. There you go.
Yeah, that's great, man. When you said that you were having a hard time finishing your poem, whatever, in my head I was like, oh, that sucks for you, but it's great for me because that just means I have to beat Dan. Dan, that was really good, man.
Thank you.
All right, Dan, it's up to you.
All right. This poem is entitled Hammer. Years of service showing through, the grip of the hammer is worn. Countless nails expertly struck, countless structures born. Never able to complain, the hammer did its duty. From the toolbox every day reveals the hammer's beauty. No joy or sadness is felt, just stoic acceptance of fate. The hammer is a useful tool when swung strong and straight. Another expert swing, the hammer breaks. Calloused hands dispose of the broken tool. That's it.
That's pretty good.
Oh, that's good too. Dang it, guys.
Come on, guys. Why can't you guys suck at this?
So it's sort of about, it's not about manliness per se, but it's kind of about the plight of many men, most men probably.
the plight of man in general.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely the plight of the working man.
Yeah.
Like, it's a real thing where if you work as a mechanic or in the trades or construction, your body is shot by age 40. Like my dad has had both shoulders replaced and has back pain. Like just doing the manual labor destroys your body. And there's no like, in the military, if you take a bullet or even if you like stub your toe too hard, you get disability for the rest of your life. In the trades, there's none of that. Once you're out, you're like, oh, well, you ruined your body in service to our buildings, but sorry, see you later. So the ending of the hammer is pretty apt, I think.
Yeah.
An apt metaphor. Okay, so I don't know how to pick a winner.
Yeah, I know.
I was gonna say, so bearing our soul to the internet was the easy part. Now we have to choose who won. That's the
Yeah,
hard
honestly, I was surprised at how good you guys' poems was. I thought I had a really good poem, but you guys' poems were really good.
part. Yeah, I would say my feelings are hurt, but I had the same idea, the same thought.
I won't get butt hurt if I lose. So maybe we can do like the what is it? Like Eurovision rules where you get to vote for one, but it can't be your own.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Dan, yours was great. I would vote for Mike's, I think. And maybe that's unfair because I don't know, the message to the kids speaks to me.
Yeah.
And the rhyme scheme was strong in that poem. So
let's not focus on because I feel like all of our messages were pretty solid.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the poem writing. You know what I mean? How's your iambic pentameter?
I don't know.
They don't have to be iambic pentameter.
I have a sonnet that I spent so much time making my iambic pentameter work. And sonnets are hard to write, and I got so mad because it took me like 8 hours to write this thing, and it's not that good. But like it's written perfectly structurally, but I just don't think it was as good as my hammer one.
Do you want to? Well, yeah. Do you want to?
I don't
lay it on
want.
us just out of curiosity. Okay, you don't have to.
I don't really want to. It's not that good. Compared to you guys' poems, it would make me look stupid.
That would have made this decision easier.
I would say I would lean towards Mike's over Travis's.
Yeah, I agree.
Strictly because of the rhyming, and the I feel like the flow was very solid. It's like I don't know. It sounded good. Like even if the words were garbage, I think it would have sounded nice to listen to.
It's important to say that the words weren't garbage, though. Like your word choice was solid too. Like,
yeah,
you worked in. This isn't like a dig at you. Like multi-syllable words within smallish lines, and you made it sound natural.
Yeah.
Shucks, you guys. So, did you guys both vote for me then? Because then I don't have to pick one of you. I'm gonna say I liked both of your guys' very much. So, does that mean I
I've got my vote?
I got my vote too, Mike.
Yay! But I like legit, guys. This was really good. You guys did real good poetry. Poetry good.
Yeah. Y'all done good words.
We're good at words.
We word good. We worded good today.
We did
it. Just because I forgot to ask, did you guys read any haikus?
And I read like 2, and I was like,
I don't like haikus.
I don't like haikus.
I don't like them either. Nope. That's one thing I don't feel that dumb when I say I just don't get it. Like I'm all for constraints and like efficiency with words, but man, every syllable has to carry a lot of weight in those, and it just does not make for interesting reading.
I mean, I know there's a million people or more that will disagree with us, but I'm just not into haikus. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
Fair enough. All right. Are we? Is Is this it? Are we any other final thoughts on poetry before we crown the champion?
No.
No.
All right.
I don't know. I think poetry is cool. This has kind of inspired me to kind of maybe give it another. I've tried giving poetry a shot before, but I never really got into it. But there's a few of them that I was really enjoying. I might dig a little deeper into it. I don't know if it's something I'm gonna incorporate into the rest of my everyday life, but I don't know.
I agree. It's definitely it was nice kind of diving into it in a setting that wasn't academic. You know what I mean? Because I think academia has a way of sucking the joy out of anything that can be enjoyed. So, you know, all of my previous like encounters with poetry has been from school in one way or another, and I have never really seeked it out before. So it was kind of cool to reapproach it and say, you know, see, there's value to be had there, and you know, I'm gonna dig into it a little more, you know, from time to time.
I agree. Kind of the goal of this was to try and find some poetry I feel like, see if there's any way to enjoy poetry. And I think I agree with you guys that I did find some poets that I genuinely enjoy. And I think the takeaway for listeners would be to both check out some poetry with the understanding that there will probably be like 85% of poets that you don't really care for, but the 15% or so that you do like will probably make it worth it. And there's kind of like Dan said, like, you know, tasty little brain cookies you can read in like 10 seconds and take something away with you. So I would definitely recommend it.
They also make for good tattoos.
Sure.
Just saying.
Now presenting the Poetic Soul, Mike Collins.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you everybody for listening. I wish I had thought of a limerick to finish this off with.
Give us one off the top of your head. Let's do it.
For a second there, I thought you were gonna like leave just like a small little line there, because you almost had the structure of like a limerick or something. If you were to just like capitalize it, I wouldn't have even questioned it.
I was trying to think of one, and then I was trying to think of if I just wait long enough and just let it die. That would be better.
You're gonna say like potato or microwave, like your favorite joke.
Yeah, that's what I should do. All right. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.
Man, what
a strong ending. That's okay.
Next time on Perpetual Incompetence. I feel like I can squat for some time.
I just imagine you squatting at your desk at work instead of sitting.
I'll just do it on top of my chair. So I can...
Just like Gollum typing away at a keyboard. Whatever it takes, man. Go for glory.